So the session here is with the Nutrition Network, and it's all about the training that they provide for physicians in this concept of the ketogenic diet and carbohydrate restriction.
Hi there, my name is Jane Bullen and I'm the Managing Director of the Nutrition Network. The Nutrition Network was founded in 2018 by a group of us that originally worked within the Noakes Foundation and had spent many years thinking of ways that we could support and change the national landscape in South Africa and internationally to better equip people with ways that were preventative and lifestyle focused to reverse chronic disease. This came, of course, very much from Prof. Tim Noakes' original journey with reversing his own diabetes, and then further through the thousands of people in South Africa that changed their lives by adopting what was called a banting, or is now more commonly referred to as a keto diet. What we found was that with very simple carbohydrate restriction and some simple dietary macro changes, people made unbelievable changes to their health and to their outlook of their lives. And what we wanted to do with this was we wanted to find medical professionals that could support the lay people that were adopting low carbohydrate principles with their medical journeys. So we were being inundated with hundreds, if not thousands, of people that were coming to us within the Noakes Foundation and asking for advice and support. We didn't have the referral paths to send all of these people. So we went on a long journey of looking for professionals in the medical community that we could refer patients to. And of course what we found was that there weren't many that we were sure knew exactly how to adopt this process, how to clinically treat people with different conditions with the low carbohydrate diet. And also we found that of course it was an emerging science, so there was a need for a community and a group of peers to support each other and learn together. So our first effort at this was something called the Professional Training in Low Carbohydrate Practice, which was launched in 2018 and was overwhelmingly successful on an international level. So what we found was that people from other continents were waiting for this to happen and wanted to do our trainings. And of course it took a little bit longer to find a local network, which was what we originally created it for. So what we did was we jumped onto an international area and we worked very closely with many other colleagues in the growing areas that we now are part of, in terms of our belief, which is that we are going to change medicine one patient and one practitioner at a time. So how do we do this? Mostly through e-learning. We have online courses and professional trainings for people from a variety of backgrounds. The first one that we originally created is called LCHF for Medical and Adult Healthcare Professionals. It's a professional training in LCHF, keto, nutrition and treatment. That has 23 CPD points. Next comes LCHF for nurses, which is a professional training in LCHF nutrition for improved patient care within the nurse community. After that comes LCHF in clinical practice, which is for allied and medical healthcare professionals wishing to advance their understanding to a deeper level. So we go into much more specific clinical applications in these modules. We also have a program called LCHF for dietitians, which is 25 CPD points. And this is a professional training for dietitians and certified nutrition specialists in LCHF for health promotion and medical nutrition therapy. We have some elective trainings that we've developed over time, which form part of our certification platform. The first one is diabetes reversal, which is one of my favorite, where we look at how type 1 and type 2 diabetes can be successfully managed in the case of type 2 diabetes actually reversed using an LCHF or keto diet. Ethics explores the big issues facing medical and healthcare profession today and the ethical dilemmas of each, and how to include an ethical approach to your practice if you are offering low carbohydrate methodology in your practice, and how to do it in a way that's compliant within the local healthcare body in your country. We also have the advisor training, which is for LCHF enthusiasts wishing to upskill and acquire professional accreditation in nutrition coaching. And what's coming next in terms of modules is a module on obesity treatment and understanding, an integrated approach to the treatment of LCHF, which looks more from an integrative medicine perspective, neurology and the treatment and the use of LCHF and the neurological complications, physiology and biochemistry, and fasting. We have trainers and lecturers from all over the world that do our different lectures on our courses. Most of them, if not all of them, except for the advisor and lay people's trainings, are CPD accredited internationally, so you can use the time that you spend on your trainings for our courses for your annual CPD requirements as a healthcare worker. We are the first LCHF training in the world for medical practitioners, and we now have over 3,000 people globally that have done our trainings. All of our content is unique and it's originally filmed and customized. We have strict vetting processes. We also have online forums for our members where there's a live, vibrant discussion and conversation, debate, sometimes heated, sometimes intellectual and interesting. A portion of all of our enrollment fees is to support the funding of the Noakes Foundation and Eat Better South Africa, which does community work, research and education into underserved communities. We have over the years developed a beautiful, growing, immensely rich network of practitioners and a professional community that has become known as the Nutrition Network. And within that, of course, we have our medical directors and our board. We have medical voices from all over the world and from different specialities. And then we have the many, many students who are growing in knowledge and are immensely passionate about what they do and are doing things differently. So generally comprised of people who have chosen to take a different path and to treat patients from a different perspective. Exciting, unbelievable, knowledgeable, passionate people that have made me personally believe in medicine again and believe in the hope and the value that medicine has to offer the world. It's people who are moving from sick care to healthcare through their own journeys of offering medicine and practicing medicine and struggling to see patient results, particularly in the area of diabetes and obesity. We are looking for ambassadors and partners on a global level. So this year we have translated our courses, some of our courses, not all of them, mostly the baseline courses, so the entry-level courses, into 6 languages, and we would love to translate them into 50 languages over the next couple of years. So we're looking for partners that are interested in translating and localizing the course content into their countries and communities. We're also looking for ambassadors that are interested in growing the brand and the vision that we have for LCHF and clinical practice, and that want to start a business and earn money from the income that could be accrued and made through generating course content, supporting the sales and marketing of the courses locally, and that are passionate low carb advocates.
These folks are here representing the Nutrition Network, which is, I get in trouble, I think, if I say it's a spin-off of the Noakes Foundation, because they're trying to separate the two entities. But they created this with the idea of providing training for practitioners who wanted to learn about this and be confident in introducing it into their practice. And I was actually looking at doing some kind of online training myself, and they reached out to me and said, hey, we've got this new program. Back then it was just one course for physicians. Wouldn't you want to help us promote it? And I was like, okay, bargain. Now I don't have to build this thing. And they've done since then a fantastic job. They've got a whole ton of courses. And for those of you that were listening to me at the beginning, and hopefully I'll get to talk about it a little bit more through the weekend, we have created a non-profit organization called the Society for Metabolic Health Practitioners. And that's going to be the home for the clinical guidelines and the practitioner lists and all of those things. It's all going to have a real home now. And one of the things that we're introducing is an accreditation process. So we're going to be busy defining pathways to achieve that accreditation. And the people that have done these courses, or people that are considering it, these courses will be a part in those pathways in numerous places. So if you guys are interested in becoming part of that society and eventually getting MHP behind your name and accredited as a metabolic health professional, then this is something that you need to consider. And with our board of directors, one of the big things that's come out is that they want to for sure make sure that the ethics module is included as well. And you guys were quite proud of that when you actually first launched it. So everybody here thinks it's a worthwhile thing too. So yeah, maybe Jane can kind of embellish and add more to what I've just said about this, and you guys can maybe have a discussion about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's been really, really key to our growth and to the incredible people that have done the training in the States has been our partnership and working with you. And that's exactly, it's such an embodiment of why we did this and why we created the Nutrition Network was to build a network. So what we were really clear on was that it wasn't only about us and it wasn't only about Prof. Noakes. He's wanted for years to work with a broader group of people. And what we had today, which was one of our case studies, which is a spin-off or part of our journal club that we have every month, was a group of incredible specialists and medical professionals listening to two coaches and advisors that were talking about how they work with clients in their practices. And it was so amazing to the conversation afterwards, which was just a neurologist who's been practicing neurology for, I think he said 35 years, and talking about how alone he feels in his profession, and learning that across the world, there are medical professionals like Neville and Hasina and Prof. Noakes and the rest of you that work in the medical areas that are listening, that have felt alone and that haven't found their network and haven't found their people or their tribe. And what we're creating through Low Carb USA and the Nutrition Network is a professional training platform that really allows people to connect and to work cross interdisciplinary. So we have advisors and coaches working with specialists and GPs to support the integral health of a patient. And Neville and Hasina can talk more about that as well. But what we're seeing is particularly the emerging and important role of coaches and advisors. So people needing to consult across disciplines.
Yeah, I must say that it was a dream to have a global family. Obviously, if you're on Twitter and Facebook and reading or listening to podcasts and keeping up with the literature, then you know that there is a global global group of people, and our aim was to find a way to form a network, like Jane said, so that we could. No longer are we to be the outcasts sitting in our medical rooms or conferences, afraid to pick up our hands and say, "What about low carb?" And then just get a sort of laughed at and have to prove our point. Finally, we can actually talk about the patients we're actually seeing and get into the nitty-gritty details and discuss with a group of like-minded people. I saw this case of fatty liver disease and the numbers look like this. What do you think? And so I think I'm very proud that we're forging our own way forward. We're creating our own sort of university where we're discussing and we're researching. And obviously everything is backed by the latest research. And we're very, very glad and grateful to have Low Carb USA on board as well.
Yeah, it's great to meet you finally, Doug. I missed not having been part of the previous Low Carb USAs and that, but it's really been fantastic to know the work that you guys have been doing and the promotion you've been doing for our courses and that. And we've got so many followers from the USA as well that it's been wonderful. And I think Asina and both Jane have said that we've really had quite a global reach. We have people from literally all over the world now doing the courses, reaching out to us. And we had a really interesting webinar today where one of the doctors from Singapore was telling us sort of how lonely he feels and how he's really just was reaching out to us. We were saying, well, actually, it's great because most of us have actually felt lonely in this world for a long time. And, forming this nutrition network, and each one of us are seeing almost the same things happening with patients. And I've heard I was listening to some of the talks earlier, just saying, that the doctors have all found the same kind of thing. And you're reversing patients' diabetes. We're seeing that on a daily basis. I see patients daily. So it's just an incredible adventure, really, to be on. And, to be able to share that with everybody else in the world has been fantastic. So, I just want to thank you for your promotion of our work, Doug.
Oh, that's only a pleasure, man. When I mentioned in the beginning, like when we very first did this, you only had a course for physicians. And there was, from our side, when we started promoting it, like everybody was complaining, like, why can't we do it as well? This is such a cool idea. And slowly but surely you've added courses for all these different sectors of people, including, as you mentioned, one for the health coach, for the keto coach. Because I was saying to you, like, these people are they're so excited about this, they're going to go out there and create their coaching program or whatever it is. So if there's a way that we can provide a course to them to make sure that they actually go out and teach people the right stuff, then that would be very cool. But Jane, and I remember you telling me that it was actually the hardest course that you, that for you guys to create. Maybe you can tell us a bit more about that and why it was so difficult and what went into making that course.
I think the thing is, if you're working in the medical, there are very strict rules and criteria of how medical professionals can work with patients and the kinds of things they can say and can't say. And obviously, when you start to look at the coaching area, it's a hybrid area. It's quite complex. So you get a lot of kind of self-designated people that call themselves doctors but aren't. And what we had to do was spend a lot of time working on the legal disclaimers. It's different in every country, so there was a lot of different nuances in terms of that in every country, but also just really a huge focus on the scope of practice. So appropriacy, how you can talk to patients or clients in a coach's case, and how and when to refer is critical in this area. And we did this course. The Nutrition Network was launched solely for the medical community. And in our first round of applications, we had hundreds of people that were working in every area, from personal training to kinesiology to homeopathy, that weren't necessarily medical body registered and weren't necessarily practicing medicine, but that are doing incredible work with people's health. And we started to look at, if you think of a typical Weight Watchers group or all the really successful big mainstream weight loss groups in the world, it's a huge variety of people that do it. It's not medical professionals. So what we've recognized over the years is that essential need for coaching. The medical information supports people to a point, and it's often when they're at that point of disease or scare tactics, but the large bulk of the population just actually needs health and dietary support and coaching and mindset support. So incredibly important is that plug in. And for doctors to be able to work with somebody that gives people one-on-one constant support in other areas. So what we don't want necessarily is for people to end up in a doctor's or a specialist's office. We want them to be working with coaches and to be working on their health and optimization, and then working with the medical profession when it's nuanced and when they're ill and when they're trying to refine certain areas. So we're not trying to take away doctors' jobs, but we're trying to enhance the experience. And what we've seen through that, the interesting thing's been that a lot of our medical doctors have done the advisor training and are integrating coaching skills into their practice. So it's going round in circles. So I'll just share that my experience of the incredible, intimatable, unbelievably scary at the time that we met her, and since then I've realized more and more inspiring, Advocate Joan Adams. Doug, I know that you've known her actually from long before her legal days.
I was in high school with her.
So Prof. Noakes's HPCSA trial, which started in 2014, we all sat for a very, very long periods of time in a room with the two sides, the HPCSA, which is the Health Professions Council of South Africa, and then Prof. Noakes and his team, it turned into a bit of a farcical play out of events, but the advocate, Joan Adams, was the judge of the HPCSA trial. And she was just the most incredible character who was so professional, so ethical throughout the trial. And then later on, after the trial ended and Prof. Noakes had been vindicated, wrote to us and talked to us about how much respect she had for him and his work, and actually approached us and said she would like to work with us in some capacity to clarify the ethics and the way that people are approaching social media in medicine. So it's a huge, big, new emerging science. The course isn't focused particularly on low carbs, but what it does do is it gives medical professionals ideas and skills as to how to navigate the new domain. So, and it's so interesting talking to Neville in particular, who's been around for a while in medicine, and also Prof. Noakes and has seen it, but not for as long necessarily, is what you did sort of 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago in medicine and what you studied. We didn't have email in those days. We didn't have social media. We didn't have Instagram. We didn't have Twitter. So doctors didn't have to understand those. You know, the Hippocratic Oath didn't cover how you deal with Twitter. So that's what we start to look at, is ways that doctors can present themselves professionally, in the media, in social media, in ways that are bold and also ethical and compliant. And there's a huge edge there. People are very scared to come out and talk about particularly low carb or new science. They're kind of waiting for the peer-reviewed evidence, and then even then they're scared, because we know LCHF is evidence-based now, but there's still a nervousness to it. They've seen examples of people like Prof. Notes and Gary Fetke who have been at risk of losing their licenses. So because of that, there's a sort of tendency to stay hidden in the cupboard. And what we're hoping to achieve is that people will feel confident that they're doing the right thing by actually talking about it, sharing their knowledge, sharing their skills. Essential for the movement to grow and to evolve.
So I wanted to first go back to the advisor course and add my view of why it was such a difficult course to build. Because as doctors, you get training on how to assess the patient, you get how to do history taking, and there are a whole lot of skills that take a number of years to develop. And I have a special interest in coaching, and other than just what a regular doctor does. And so on the one hand, you're teaching the science. So how far do you go into the science in order to uplift the coach or the future coach? And on the other hand, you've got coaching, which is a whole nother entity and another way of holding space for the patient. And this, for a nutrition coach, we needed to make sure that it was a really safe course. And so the tools that you get from the advisor side, so from the coach's perspective, are tools that I as a medical professional have learned from. Because in the medical world, what I then realized was it was very much about telling the patient what to do, and often that's what the patient wants you to do. But in the coaching world, you're not allowed to tell somebody what to do. All you're allowed to do is to ask the right questions. And the person, you're just ringing little bells. And the person then is empowered to make their own decisions. So it was just something that was quite, had to be put together quite elegantly. And then just from the ethics course, obviously as a doctor practicing in tertiary medicine, in academic medicine, in the hot seat, so to speak, I was at the forefront of a lot of difficult conversations with lots of colleagues in the same boat, also in the LCHF field. And it was just very comforting. I want to use the word comforting. To listen to Joan Adams teach you what you're allowed to do and how you're allowed to care for your patient, and when you're safe and when you're being unsafe. And of course, we do medical ethics as medical students, and we have to write that final exam where we learn all these terms that we never kind of use again, mostly. And then after that, medical ethics is like cherry-picked cases that you need to complete CPD points for. But in this particular field, I think she covers it so beautifully that I just felt like a safer doctor having done that course. I think in this day and age, as Jane said, anybody who's using social media needs to be aware of the can-dos and the can't-dos. And she just did it so brilliantly. So, I think every doctor who's watching this, or your friends, just encourage them to do that course.
There's a guy here, Jay Ben. You're asking, is there a page on the Nutrition Network that updates research supporting LCHF? And he says, needed for discussing with doc colleagues who don't understand. So I think Jay, you can maybe clarify if you want to, but it sounds like he's asking if is there something that they can show about the research supporting LCHF that they can show to their doc colleagues in that to try and help them understand they need to change.
Yes, so in every course, your reference list with each lecture has the references and citations from each lecture. And then we have a couple of consolidated lists that we can share and that are in the different trainings. So there is so much. I think that's the point. So what we tend to do is use our Facebook page, our Twitter feeds, and our blogs for new things that are coming out. And there is overwhelming evidence. So it depends which courses you've done. But I think across the span of the courses, particularly the baseline courses like advisor and the professional training, we cover almost all of the major studies. Hope that answers the question. We can also share with you the listings that we keep, which we update regularly. So there's a couple of places that the citations and references are listed. I know you've got one as well.
So that I think you were saying that it's there's so much information. I mean, like, how do you, what it sounds like what you're asking for is like almost like a one-pager that you got to give to a colleague that is dubious about this. Somebody can design a really hard-hitting one-pager. I want to see that one because we all need it. There's a guy that's been doing this for 25 years. His name's Dave Getoff. He's been to a couple of our events, asking if there's a way for him to get hold of you to talk about whether he can get involved with you guys in the courses that you do and help teaching. Is there? I forget off the top of my head what the email address is in it.
Great, yeah, absolutely. Please write to us through any of our channels, info@thenutrition-network.org, jane@thenutrition-network.org, Neville Hasina@thenutrition-network.org, through Facebook, through Twitter, we're all over the place, via Doug, who's the ultimate connector and networker that we know. So amazing. Please contact us through any of those channels and we'd love to chat. There's so much scope. And I think the point that what we've realized and the point that I wanted to make is that, of course, all of you that are listening to Low Carb USA, we are preaching to the converted. And a lot of you have probably done some of our courses. But what about the million other physicians in the States that are still practicing the SAD, that are still putting people onto the standard American diet and that are sad every night, eating their donuts to recover from the depression that they're facing because their patients aren't changing and getting better, and their families aren't changing and getting better? And it's like, how to break through the category and to actually get more people to recognize carbohydrate restriction as a recognizable tool for reversal of chronic disease. So that's a big question, and it's going to take everyone from every area and every walk of life, from whether it's retail to advocacy to medicine to mothers that are feeding their children, to change.
Yeah. Hopefully, as this nonprofit starts to come into play and it actually is launched and stuff, we'll be spreading the net, I'm hoping, so that we'll start making some noise. We'll be bringing all the people that do believe in it under the umbrella. But then as they're talking about it, people are going to get to hear about it. And I'm really hoping it's from the very first time we put on our first conference. The whole idea was to try and reach people. I was watching these conferences that were going on, a couple of hundred people, a couple of places around the States back in those days. But it was all the same people that were attending all of these conferences, all the few hundred believers. And we needed to get beyond that in order to actually do some real good. So hopefully this helps. And as I mentioned, all the courses within your stable will form part of the accreditation pathway. So I think that's exciting for everybody.
I think it's been wonderful that there is a change. There is a sea change that's starting to happen, and I think even doctors and friends of our own are starting to take notice. So I think some of it comes from patients actually really pushing their doctors a bit and getting them interested and making them curious. I mean, I'm worried that there's so few that doctors still want to be driven by guidelines and don't want to think. You need to be curious to really get involved in this field. And and then coming back to the research, we actually have submitted a article or a submission to I think, Jane, you did it to the South African Health Council or whatever, basically saying we need to change the NCD sort of paradigm. And our references went on for 53 pages. So just to let, if that I think it's Jay Ben wanted to know the references. That's where they are. It's a lot of references.
Yeah. I think that's a problem, though, is that there's a lot of references. There's just
Yeah.
the elevator pitch. There isn't. I mean, the conversation's too long for an elevator pitch.
Yeah.
He was saying he followed up, and saying, yeah, one pager would be really nice to take to his doc friends and colleagues. But I challenged somebody to maybe we should do that. Maybe it should be a project. Let's try and put together something, because people's attention span's so short. Maybe we need to produce something that really does hit home in a short amount of time, that gets at least whets their appetite to want to learn more and understand more about what they've just read on that one page. It would be really cool. But I don't think I have the wherewithal to put that together. But maybe someone does there in your group.
So I just wanted to comment on that from a research perspective. Of course, what we're seeing there are those 63 pages of citations of small studies that are easy to pick apart. Why is that? Well, you've got to follow the funding trail and follow the money trail. So what we know is that big business and big pharma puts a lot of money into research, and there's big studies available that are hard to debunk. And what we see in the low carb category is that there's a lot of these small bitty studies. So there's a huge calling for a network collaboration and a massive study on a bigger level that is going to be that one pager or those couple of pages of studies. So again, it's a big call for there to be much better funded research in the LCHF category and better collaborative research. And at the same time, there's enough research already, so it's a combination of things. But at the moment, what we've seen this year, certainly locally in South Africa, is we've put through a couple of ethics approvals that have been declined because of COVID, for example. So a lot of things have been slowed down in the research front because of COVID, and people are saying, why are you studying diabetes reversal during a pandemic? Well, of course, it's even more important than ever now. It's definitely highlighted the need for metabolic disease to be brought into the forefront, for obesity to be tackled actively. So we've got to start advocating as a community is better policy responses, better governmental responses, better treatments of diseases, of chronic diseases, as a response to COVID.
Yeah, so guys, one guy's comment here is just read 50 books and then you'll get it. So yeah, and then someone's challenging me to write a one-pager, which, yeah, that's daunting. But releasing the clinical guidelines was daunting, and we got that done, so maybe I can come up with something.